don't know how it got there.
You walk by and set it down.
In case y'all get worried. Like Jackie Duncan back part 2.
Oh, God.
You laugh too.
Good evening. I'll call the meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to order. The agenda for our regular meeting is tonight's Monday, November the 9th, 2020. First, we'll have a public hearing. A public hearing on ordinance number 1545 to amend the zoning map of Tennessee, of the Tullahoma, Tennessee, is set forth in the municipal code, which is ordinance number 1392, to rezone 2 parcels at 112 South Collins Street on Coffee County Tax Map 127B, Group C, parcels 33 and 006.00, from R1 Low Density Residential to C2 General Commercial District. Is there anyone that would care to speak at the public hearing? You'll be given 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor.
State your name and address, please, for the record.
Eric Birch, 200 South Willard Street, Manchester, Tennessee. I'm here on behalf of Willard Mills, and we are requesting that this be rezoned. It's been used commercially for purposes for decades. Somehow it just slipped through the cracks, and it has come to our attention that it was zoned R1, and we are requesting that it be rezoned to commercial property.
What is currently there?
Currently, it is being used as a social club. Up until it came to our attention that it was zoned R1, and then that use was ceased at that point, but that's what will be there.
Any other questions for Mr. Burke? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Golden, would you please call the roll?
Mayor, if I can, I would just share with the board that I had a resident reach out to me that could attend the meeting, and her name is Kathy Cornior, I believe is how you say her name. I'm sorry, I did not get her address, but she is a resident in the, within 100 feet of the property. And she initially had some concerns, but her latest email to me said that after talking with her neighbors and understanding the property, that she would support the request for rezoning.
Thank you, Ms. Moody. Now, Ms. Golden, we'll go with the roll call.
Sure. Mayor Noes,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Blanks,
Here.
Alderperson Almacher,
Here.
Barry,
Here.
Blackwell, here, Gunn, here, McGee, here, 7 present.
7 present, we have a full quorum. For our invocation tonight, we have the Reverend Lynn Hendricks. Hendricks, would you please step forward and offer the invocation and lead us in the pledge of allegiance? Please stand, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Join me in prayer, please. Gracious God and Heavenly Father, we are indeed still living in unprecedented times, and I beg for your mercy upon this world that you love. I pray that you would give relief and solution to the pandemic, and we pray that you would keep people safe, help us to be responsible, but only you are the one that can have any solution for this. I thank you for this city, for what it means to me and all the residents. I thank you for its leaders. And I pray for the leaders, O Lord, that you would give them wisdom and help them to work justice and mercy. Pray that you would give them insight into the decisions that they make and help them to do what is right and fair for the community as a whole. I cannot say, oh Lord, how grateful I am for the public servants from the police department and the fire department and the emergency medical people and the people that work in sanitation that come and take our refuge, for the recycling, for every aspect of the life of this city. Please prosper and bless them. Please forgive us where we need to be forgiven, and I'm sure there's much. And though we don't deserve it, we ask for your blessing. And I pray all this in the name of the one true God. Amen. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Reverend Hendricks. Understand we have some proclamations and some special presentations tonight. Mr. Chester Darden, you have a presentation to make, I believe.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mayor. It's an honor to be here, especially for this reason that I am here. First of all, I would also like to say thank you to you and to the board for being members of ours. I work for Public Entity Partners. We provide your workers' comp, your property, and your liability insurance. So we are grateful that you are a member of ours. And I'm here to talk to you tonight about one specific person, one specific employee, one specific team member that you have. This person maintains a very high human resource standard as they work in that department. She has brought a new perspective on training, one that is very forward-thinking and one that is also outside the box, and she does a great job with that. She has creative new ways to look at risk management, which is very important to us. Costa Bryce works very hard to ensure every employee is given the proper education and the proper tools to accomplish their task in a safe manner, that they may go home safely at the end of the day. Costa is always a professional in every situation. Costa is a true leader, and she excels in keeping the city of Tullahoma headed in the right direction when it comes to risk management. She is a true servant to the employees of the city of Tullahoma. She always makes the right decision. It's not always the popular decision, but it's the right decision. And she always ensures that the city of Tullahoma has an effective risk management program. We can discuss all of her accomplishments, such as the ADA transition plan, the COVID-19 policies that you've had to do recently, all of the training things, the health and wellness fair, the health program where the employees joined in and lost weight. We can discuss all those. But really, I want to speak to you from the heart a little bit about her tonight. And really, it's emotional for me sometimes, because I hope you understand the relationships that we build with these people that we work with. Costa and I have a great relationship, and I'm very appreciative to her. But let me describe her to you in this way. I'd say there's a very good chance that there are some situations that occur in this city that she handles, very difficult situations. And she handles them, and you probably don't even have to hear about them, because she takes care of them, and she does it in a professional manner. I'd also dare say that she goes to sleep, or can't sleep sometimes. She has sleepless nights so that you can sleep. And she takes care of those things for you behind the scenes. It's our job, and what my job is, to come out, provide you with resources, educate you, encourage you, all those things, inform you of new laws, new regulations, those kind of things. That's my job, to come out and meet with Costa and your employees to do those things. But when I leave here, every time I leave here and meet with Costa, I am more encouraged, more educated. I'm a better person when I leave here, and it's because of her. It's my job to come out and supposedly make her a better person. I can't do that. She makes me a much better person. So it's an honor to present her this year with the Public Entity Partners 2020 Excellence in Risk Management Award.
I am extraordinarily touched by that recognition from a dear friend, Chester, and so many of the individuals that work at Public Entity Partners that I've had the privilege to work with for 23 plus years since I've been here. You know, they certainly say that there's a lot that you can't do alone. You really need to do it as part of a team. And that's what we have here at the city. The ultimate goal that all of you department heads have is to have a really good work environment, to have good communication with our employees so that we have a positive work environment, but also to be sure we have safety practices and policies in place so that our employees do go home safe at the end of the day. I do have to give my thanks to the department heads that I've worked with for so many years, again, working together. But they as well have so many initiatives on their own that they do in the best interest of our employees. I also want to recognize the employees who have been on our Safety and Wellness Committee. We have had over 100 employees in the 20 years that I've been here that serve on that committee. And they help to bring the information and give us input and their energy on how we can make things better for our employees, and then take that back into the departments to help support the safety culture that we strive to have. We also have employees that do building inspections throughout the buildings. But you know, ultimately, it's all of us working together. I have been so privileged to work here 20 plus years. And again, working with a wonderful team so that we have good communication, good relations with our employees to be able to address any issues that come up and to be able to treat individuals with respect and courtesy and compassion, work through those differences and move forward as a city. It's a great place to work. I, again, am very moved by the words from Mr. Darden. There are a lot of team members, and I'll even throw in there the OSHA inspector, who many people do not want to see coming. Mr. Hank Plain, I've worked with him for 15 years, consider him a friend. If he comes in and finds something, it's only to help make our workplace better and safer. I also have to thank quickly the HR staff that has worked with me, including Lisa Shepard, who's been with me now for 5 years. She does a tremendous job. So thank you again for the city administrator, current and former board members who support a lot of the initiatives that we've put in place for the benefit of our employees. And thank you again, Chester, Public Entity Partners. I am very humbled and appreciate it. Thank you.
Well deserved.
Hold down, leave your mask. You leave your mask.
Okay.
Stand there.
Hang on. My turn.
Very well deserved, Ms. Bryce. Chief Williams, I believe you and Ms. Moody have a presentation to make as well.
Yes, I thought you may want to assist me with this month's Employee of the Month recognition. This month, we are honored to recognize our school resource officer, Willie Young, for Tullahoma Employee of the Month. He is always in a positive, upbeat mood. I would 100% echo that. He makes it a point to constantly check in on the welfare of fellow officers as well as our staff. He's quick to volunteer and help if needed, and many times just takes it upon his own initiative to handle and take care of something without being asked, just because he knows it's the right thing to do. Personally, I think Chief Williams has witnessed him take the initiative to sweep up or mop up the squad room at the Tullahoma Police Department just because it needed it. And he's very, not only quick to take ownership of his surroundings, but he also deals with people in a caring and compassionate way. And these are things that we cannot train or teach, you know. Whether it's a citizen in distress or a person that he's having to arrest, he treats them all with compassion. We're thankful for his service, his attitude, and the ownership he constantly displays in our city. Any other words?
Yes, I would just like to briefly touch on, Willie, if you don't mind.
Yeah, let's invite you.
You know, one of the things that we talk about and preach within the police department is taking ownership of not only our attitude, but our actions as well. I was trying to think of putting some words together coming up here today to honor SRO Young. And so what I've kind of come to is this. We've been given so many demonstrations over the past several months in my profession of things that are wrong with law enforcement. SRO Young is everything that is right with law enforcement. So, thank you. Congratulations.
We want to give you an opportunity to say something.
Oh, I was hoping I could skip out on that part. Well, thank you, Chief, and our city administrator. Before I say anything, I'd like to thank God for the opportunity to serve my community. This is home. I grew up here, born and raised in Tullahoma. And I had asked God for one small thing to me. When I decided that this was where I wanted to spend my life, being a minister, I said, put me in a place where I can be of help to my community. I couldn't do that in the four walls of our church. So I asked him to give me a job where I could be out here where people are hurting. The job came open for a police officer, and he made a way out of no way. So I thank God for this opportunity, because everything that I do, it's not a reflection of me, it's a reflection of my Father. It's a reflection of my Heavenly Father. So, yeah, I put myself out there. I treat people with compassion and love because it's someone's husband, someone's wife, it's someone's child. One day it might be mine, and I would want an officer to show them the same compassion that I do, regardless of the situation. Every day when I am blessed to wake up, I make it a point that I can lay my head down at night and know that I have done the best that I can do, that not only reflects our city and my department, but reflects God. So that's what I go by every day, and that's what keeps me. So thank you.
Congratulations, SR.
Thank you, sir.
Young. At this time, I'll open the floor to comments from any citizens that would care to address the board this evening. Come forward, step to the podium, state your name and address. If there's none, we'll go to the reports from the members of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. This evening, we'll start with Ms. Blackburn.
Not as much as usual, which is awesome. I had the Domestic Violence Lethality Task Force meeting, which was heavy as always, but good. Lots of stuff happening within our community. And, you know, we were talking about it earlier with Alderman Allmacher and I were chatting about how, all of us were, how right now, you know, we're seeing a lot of people having a hard time with domestic violence, or intimate partner violence, whether that's because during COVID people are staying home more or what. So remember that there is a domestic violence hotline out there for people if they're in need, and there's also plenty of resources here in the area. So reach out. The other thing is the Diversity Council, except for snow, it's the Community Council for Diversity and Inclusion. Lots been going on the past 2 weeks with that, and I'm excited tonight to present it all to you. So we'll chat about that later, I'm sure. But I'm really excited, and there's a lot of members of the Bylaws Committee here, and I just want to thank them so much, and I will thank them again as well. So.
Thank you, Alderman Blackwell. Alderman Dunn.
Sir, so Winston Brooks and I have been working on some downtown initiatives, trying to get ready for Black Friday, trying to get some spruce up downtown a little bit to remind people to shop local. And we also went to at the Smyrna campus of Motlow State Community College, and I was just, me personally, I was blown away by this virtual reality demonstration. I felt like I was staring down the future. So I'm pretty excited. I know it's tying in very much with the TVA, the training that we're trying to do as far as the coding and things for our students, and just knowing that that's where we're going next. It's exciting to think that that's what Tullahoma is going to be a part of. So it's great.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Hallmarker.
Well, yeah, not as much. I was just sitting here looking back over my calendar over the past couple of weeks. Really enjoyed the Woodard's Chamber Coffee that they had a couple of weeks ago, and excited about that we are going to at least get to have a Christmas parade and some normalcy. And then, congratulations to Candy Couch, obviously, for, what do we call that? Our Grand Marshal. Yes, thank you. Our Grand Marshal of the Christmas parade, and was very sad to learn that, that business that's been such a staple here in town is going to be closing down. I do want to give a shout out to a small business. I think I'm going to start doing this. Small Business Spotlight, I think I'm going to call it in my Alderman report. Local small business, Southern Charm. They do embroidery work, and they had an open house this past weekend. I wasn't able to make it to the open house, but I've already bought a couple of things there, reasonably priced. They are in the shopping center over where Dunham's is, and over to the left next to like the old Blockbuster. To me, it's always going to be Blockbuster, but I guess it's Pet Sense, yes. Next to Pet Sense, and so awesome ladies in there running that. So if you need Christmas gifts or something embroidered for a family member, definitely check that out. Had a meeting earlier today with Chief Williams and Jennifer Moody, talking about some of the initiatives that RUPA is also so passionate about with the Domestic Violence Task Force and early intervention and training opportunities with our police force and de-escalating domestic violence situations, considering that those numbers are rapidly growing with isolationism here locally. And definitely we all need to have a heart for service and understand that it knows no demographics and no boundaries. Domestic violence can happen in any household, and I too am a survivor of domestic violence. So anyways, lots coming down the pipeline, and happy to be here. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Alderman Berry.
Well, I won't steal any Zenobia's thunder, but I did attend the trunk or treat, and it was amazing. We'll let her talk about that. Shout out to our veterans, and reminder that Wednesday at 11 o'clock at the new Veterans Park by the Caboose, retired Major General Robert Harris will be a guest speaker. I'm assuming the mayor will speak as well, honoring our veterans. Kind of separately, I think tonight, seeing Miss Costa and Willie, those are examples of, we have excellent people all throughout the city staff, but it makes you proud to sit up here and to be a part of it. We can sit up here and talk all we want, but they're the actual boots on the ground implementing and getting these things done. So thank you to all of the city staff for everything that you do. I had my nephew's birthday this Saturday. He's 11. The only time I ever feel older is when my niece and nephew turn older. But that is it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Alderman Berry. Alderman McGee.
Okay, on October 31st, it was my first, I guess, Alderman event, and it was a success, and I can't say thank you enough to the community and everybody who was involved. I want to thank Alderman Berry and Alderman Blackwell for attending. We had 300 plus people come through the trunk or treat, Of course, we had safety precautions in place. The kids enjoyed the pumpkin painting, cotton candy, and they enjoyed the ring toss. They won, their parents may not have been happy, but they won 1 liter drinks. So that was fun. I did attend the TAEDC meeting, also at D.W. Wilson, and excited about the new businesses and developments that are coming to our city in Tullahoma. This past Saturday, I volunteered at the Eli Grove Legacy Walk, the 8K walk, which was amazing. I could not have been one of the runners or walkers, so I just passed out pizza and drinks and ice cream. I do want to take this time to thank Pasta for her encouraging words during the passing of my brother, and I want to just congratulate her for her award on tonight. I've also spent time with Wendy Wilkerson, who is the Director of Special Education for Tullahoma City Schools, regarding a park just for children with special needs. I've emailed Kurt and Miss Moody regarding this endeavor. I am currently working on a coat drive for children, middle schoolers, and high school kids for the winter, and we'll be partnering with the Salvation Army with this endeavor. And I just want to remind everyone that on this Saturday at the Tullahoma Art Center, there will be an art exhibit, Culture Through Our Eyes, and it's art from our local Black artists in our community, so we're really excited about that. And that's it.
Thank you, Alderman McGee. Mayor Pro Tem Blanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Since we met a couple weeks ago, I had a Tullahoma Utility Authority meeting. Nothing out of the ordinary there. We'll be looking at, on the light tube side, on people that take the TV part of that. This is every couple of 3 years we have to renegotiate with the Nashville stations and pay them more than I think we should, but you know, they sort of got us where we just have to grin and bear it. But so you know, in the next, you know, probably next year we'll have a rate increase on the cable side, and that happens to everybody, just not light tube people. If you don't live in the area where you can receive the digital signal, and we're just sort of on the cusp, then you have to pay to have it. So I also had a Duck River Utilities Commission meeting. They also put out their annual report, 3 big bullets from them. We had a clean audit, no findings. We have clean water, and we have cheap water. So, you know, that's a utility that works, you know, and we always turn on the spigot and we have water most of the time. So, you know, we take that for granted, but, you know, we always have water and they do good work. Arts Council, we have that exhibit coming up that Cernovia talked about. Also, D. Foster exhibit opened on the 7th. Check that out if you want to. A lot of stuff going on with the Arts Council. So I think they even have some art lessons and different things. If you call down there, they can hook you up or look online. Our Tullahoma football team, high school football team, hosted a playoff game last Friday night. They were victorious over a team out of Crossville, beat the fire out of them. We're now 11-0. We will play Marshall County this Friday night at Wilkins Stadium. Go on the TSSAA website and get your tickets. Did you have any trouble getting in?
I had no trouble getting in.
Okay, it's all I think by phone now.
You have to get your tickets online from TSSAA and take your iPhone with your ticket on your phone.
If you're unable to do that and you would like to watch it, if you're a subscriber to LightTube, it's on channel 23, and it's like in high D. It's very, very good quality. So that's how I've enjoyed quite a few games this year. Also would like to encourage everybody to shop Tullahoma. That's one of my mantras. If you can get it in town, please do. The last thing I'd like to mention is we had a big election this last week. so we don't have to watch any more commercials for a while, thank God. If who you were supported were the victor, don't gloat. And if who you supported did not win, don't pout. This country will go on whichever way you chose. So, I'm glad it's behind us. America's has survived a lot of things. We've been through a Revolutionary War. We've been through a Civil War. We've been through a Great Depression. We went through the Great War, World War I. So, back 4 years ago, I tried to get my dad to pick his brain because he lived during the Vietnam War. And that was a very contentious time for America. A lot of polarization. And, he just sort of shrugged his shoulders and he said, we all always persevere, we always push on. He didn't really, seem to bother him that much. And I thought, well, if it didn't bother him, it should not bother me. So, the last couple of elections, presidentially or nationally, have been, long drawn out affairs. It's worse than having an enema. So I'm glad it's behind us. So like I said, if your team won, great. If your team didn't win, don't poo-poo too much, and let's just go on and get together and go from there. That's all I have, Mayor.
Is that all?
Yeah, I was a little bit wordy tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Blanks. Speaking of contentious elections, Alderman Berry and I know about elections. We just went through one.
Early vote cost me too.
And I trust that
I know all about it.
And I trust that our country can work together as well as Alderman Berry and I are able to work together.
That was a good one.
Yes.
And speaking of Alderman Berry, I owe him an apology. Last week, your last board meeting, he came in with some of the nicest masks. He passed around to all the board members, and it looks like he's done it again.
Brought one for Rose.
Thank you, Alderman Berry, for doing that for the board. Appreciate that. I was negligent in not recognizing you for doing that last time, so thank you again. October 27th, I attended the chamber meeting at Woodard's. It was a great event, and so it's been covered. On October the 29th, I had a town hall meeting. It was not a city-sponsored function. It was a Ray Noah's function, and we had the Tennessee Highway Patrol at a town hall meeting. Citizens had an opportunity to come to a town hall meeting and tell the THP what they thought about them without retribution.
How'd that go?
And we did. But that was an interesting meeting. We have encouraged them to attend. How many in the room knows who your local THP representative is? I doubt if any of you do.
That's a good
But
one.
we have asked, so we've asked them to attend some of our chamber meetings to make yourself known, just so we could be acquainted with the THP side of our law enforcement. Then on the 2nd of November, I did meet with Mayor Cordell. Good meeting with him. It's already been covered. You've mentioned the Veterans Day Parade, Veterans Day event down at, we call it History Park, but it's Veterans Memorial Park there at the Caboose. We'll be meeting there for 11 o'clock meeting on the 11th. And not just meeting there, but there will be, veterans are going to form a caravan this week, starting at the high school at late 30 or so in the morning, and they will pass by every school in the city so that the children can wave to the veterans. It's a great thing that they're doing there, and then they will be arriving at Veterans Memorial Park there at 11 a.m., where we will observe a moment of silence for our veterans. One other word, only one BOMA meeting in November, and only one BOMA meeting in December. We'll not meet the week of of Thanksgiving or the week of Christmas. So that's my report. And I want to comment to this board. For those listening, as you've gone around this room and listened to what all of our aldermen are doing in our city, I think you can be proud of this board and the work that they're doing in our community. And from the mayor to the aldermen, I say thank you, every one of you. Thank you. At this time, we'll have the report from our city attorney.
Last week, Ms. Moody and I met with the Gary Cordell, the county mayor, in relationship to an annexation request for about a 12-acre parcel of land east of Hunter's Ridge on Lake Avoca Road, right north of town. And we're moving forward with that. The county's going to cooperate with us in that endeavor because this property is not contiguous to the city limits. It's near the city limits. We're going to have to connect it by way of annexing part of Lake Avoca Road. So we're working on that project now. They're proposing about 30 home lots in that subdivision, and at the present time they are developing about 6 lots right adjacent to it that they can do because it's on an existing road already. So that's an exciting new development for our town. We'll be looking forward to that in the future. Also, you will recall that earlier this evening we had an executive meeting relative to litigation that's been brought against the city and many others by residents of Oak Park subdivision in relationship to their objecting to a convenience store that was built by the Damerons at the location corner of Clement Drive and Westside Drive, right across the street and south of Tullahoma Funeral Home. There is a proposed settlement of that litigation, and the city is involved in that. The city doesn't have any economic involvement in that matter at all, nor do we have any exposure, in my opinion, because the allegations in the complaint were that the city improperly allowed the development to go into an area that was not properly zoned. The plaintiffs were wrong in that contention. The property had been properly zoned in 1999, and it was zoned for commercial development. However, in order to settle the matter without further litigation and the expense of litigation, we have entered into a tentative settlement agreement for this board to approve tonight. That agreement does not involve any compensation from the city to the plaintiffs, who are the residents of Oak Park. The compensation, if any, will be provided by the Damerons and by the owners of the property from whom the Damerons purchased their property. That's the Harton family. It will only involve our aiding in the planning commission's considering the rezoning of the property adjacent to the new convenience store and filling station to open space for a portion of it and residential for the other portion, because the property had previously been zoned commercial by the city of Tullahoma. That rezoning would affect some sort of a buffer between Oak Park subdivision, a nice residential division in our town, and the commercial development there on the corner. So we're going to, if this board were to approve that later on tonight, then the other things that they've asked it to consider is to encourage the Department of Transportation to install pedestrian crosswalks at the intersection of Westside Drive and Clement Drive, to encourage the Department of Transportation to erect a traffic signal at that intersection, and to place the construction of a sidewalk along the south side of Westside Drive from Oak Park Drive to Clement Drive, to put it on our list of sidewalk developments that we have on an ongoing project in our town. So we've discussed this fully at our executive committee meeting tonight, and I'd like to ask the board to consider putting that on our agenda under new business as the last item on new business.
Mayor.
And I'll take a motion to do that.
We'll entertain a motion from any of the aldermen to so move.
I'd like to make a motion to add that in under new business this evening.
Thank you, Alderman Dahlmacher.
I'll second it.
Made and second, we'll add that. Approve of the board.
And guess what? You guys have to vote again anyway.
Oh,
we have to go.
I wasn't ready, so.
We have to do it again anyway. Yes, well, do it now? You can do it now, yeah, because I didn't flip it.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
Everyone please vote, because I wasn't ready. And it is a motion to add an agenda item regarding, oh, very expensive. We want to
Okay.
restate it.
You ready for us to vote?
Everyone, yes. Do you want to restate the motion or not?
Would you do it, Alderman Lawmacher, would you care to restate that motion for the recorder?
I would like to make a motion to add the settlement negotiations to new business tonight.
Okay, and everyone's voted?
And the motion passes 7-0 to add that as a new business item. Thank you, Alderman Lawmacher. Okay, report from our city administrator.
Thank you. Tonight, I would like to go back to a presentation I mentioned to you at our last board meeting that we have completed the TVA Innovation Academy, and we were waiting for our feedback from the Shark Tank, if you will, that we pitched our project idea to. And we were fortunate to find out our idea was ranked in the top 3 of presentations that were given that day. And really, we have had several of the Shark Tank foundations and organizations reach out to us already to talk about potential partnerships or financial opportunities out there to fund our initiative. We also are hearing from some local industries that would like to meet with us and partner in the initiative, and have several meetings scheduled for the next couple of weeks. So I thought, if you will, we were given only 5 minutes, and we had to hit the 5-minute mark, so I promise you it is a 5-minute presentation, and I would like to give it to you just the exact same way that we presented it to the Shark Tank, so you can see what the end result of all of our months of work and workshops has been.
You're on the clock.
Yes. And before I start, I do want to say thank you very much to the core team that worked on this. It was Tom Robinson with TAEDC, Winston Brooks with Community Development, Shelley Smith with Motlow College, and myself. And then we had a team, a steering committee, a much larger community group that we would come back to and share ideas and thoughts as we worked on this. Okay. Ready? We are Team Tullahoma, training tomorrow's tech giants. I'm Jennifer Moody, City Administrator in Tullahoma, and in addition to the city, our team includes industry partners from Motlow College, Arnold Air Force Base, Jacobs Engineering, and our Tullahoma City School System. Here are some of our local industry partners that have already committed to supporting this initiative, and we hope to add many more soon. Tullahoma exceeds expectations and amenities for a small, rural, 20,000 population community. We are a gig city located within 70 miles of 3 major metros in southern Middle Tennessee. Tullahoma is a city as unique as our name, with a rich heritage in aerospace and aviation. We hold a place of distinction in America's national defense strategy. We're home to Arnold Air Force Base and the University of Tennessee Space Institute. We have a talented workforce of engineers, scientists, and other professionals providing research, testing, and data analysis to both the U.S. military and NASA. Design thinking and innovation is in our community DNA. Pictured here is Jackson. He's an elementary school student who wants to be one of the first scientists to be on Mars when he grows up. And it's our desire to help him be anything that he can imagine. Our mission in Tullahoma is to ensure that no child has to leave to have the career of their dreams. The problem that we identified is that Tullahoma is lacking a local talent pipeline for our high-tech industries. It's resulting in too many young, talented people leaving the community. We must find a way to stop the leakage of high school graduates leaving our community to find work or to further their education elsewhere. Tullahoma's workforce is shrinking, and our median age is 40 years old and trending up. Our local industries are working harder and harder each year to recruit talent from outside the area to move to Tullahoma. In addition, we see that traditional manufacturing jobs have decreased by 5%, and manufacturing that remains is highly reliant on robotics and advanced technology. Locally, the coding courses offered are just no longer best matched to job-ready certifications. For too long, Tullahoma has lacked a coordinated initiative to excite and engage our youth in the high-value jobs that are right here in our community, so that tomorrow's tech giants can bloom where they are planted. So our solution, it's Tullahoma's ACE Academy, advanced coding education, beginning by introducing concepts in 3rd grade and progressing to more advanced skills through 12th grade. We want to teach advanced manufacturing, modeling, simulation, and computer programming, and not only engaging students, but also training teachers, offering summer externship programs where teachers can see firsthand the career paths and the work that goes on in our local industries, and then bring back that personal experience to the classroom to get their students excited about future careers that are right here locally. Our industry council will provide mentors and speakers in the schools and help us measure success and adjust to emerging industry trends. Last, we know outreach will be essential to ensure that the community knows about the opportunities available within Tullahoma schools, and so we can share our success stories. The mission of Tullahoma's ACE Academy is to grow our own local talent pipeline with advanced high-tech skills, building upon our engineering, research, and testing excellence in aerospace and aviation. We believe there are 5 steps we need to make this a reality. First, formal commitment with the Tullahoma City Schools. Second, gain commitment from our industry partners. Third, develop the curriculum. Fourth, train staff and offer an incentive or stipend for the externship program. And last, we'd like to create a maker space and purchase equipment that we can put right on the campus of Tullahoma High School. We believe these 5 steps can be accomplished over the next 12 months. And so this is what we're asking for today to make ACE a reality. We'll need an investment of $450,000 to start this program and make it sustainable in 3 years. We intend to obtain investments from our local industry partners and others, including foundations and possibly grants. Today, we're looking for feedback and suggestions on how to measure success. We'd like to form from our industry council an independent review board, and this will help us identify milestones and metrics and help ensure our programs stay relevant and future forward. Last, we need connections to mentors and speakers to help us promote the program locally and regionally, and we welcome the opportunity to network with other communities that may already be doing similar work that we can learn from. Thank you for this opportunity.
Close enough. Good. Good job.
So one of the organizations that Winston and I and Tom had an opportunity to talk with today was an organization called Lead for America. And you may be familiar, I think, with Teach for America and AmeriCorps, some of these other programs, but this is one that's very unique, and it connects future leaders with their hometowns, wherever they may be in the country. It encourages them to go back to their hometowns and lead and do projects for them. And so we're going to be learning more about that and how we could maybe bring a fellow. We do know there's already fellows for Lead for America, 2 in Chattanooga, 1 in Memphis. And so they have partnerships in Tennessee and are very interested in helping support. We see a similarity to their mission and ours. And so we're just excited to continue seeing where this leads us. We know we believe we're on the right track, making sure that these high-value jobs that are being created right here in our community go to people right here in our community. So, thank you.
Good job. Thank you. Let's go to the consent agenda. I'll tell you that all matters listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or a citizen so requests, in which case that item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. During that portion of the meeting reserved for comments from citizens as shown on the agenda, citizens may request that the board remove an item from the consent agenda, and that discussion will be held on that item. I'll read the caption for the consent agenda. Item number 2119 is the minutes from the October 26th regular meeting. Item number 2120, financial report from September. Item number 2121 is to approve the annual public library maintenance of effort agreement with the Coffee County Public Library System. And item number 2123 will be to approve the amendments of a memorandum understanding when Coffee County Emergency Medical Service and Tullahoma Fire Department for the effective provision of coordinated emergency for medical response services. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Motion by Blackwell, seconded by Zenobia. Ms. Black, Ms. McGee, excuse me, Zenobia. All in favor?
All right, let's vote again. Sorry. All in favor, green. There we go. All right. There. Passed.
Oh, passes 7-0. On the items of old business, item number 2112, to approve the purchase of 30 portable radios consisting of full replacement program for public safety in the amount of $18,508.50 at state contract pricing from Communications Evolution for Tullahoma Police and Tullahoma Fire Department Rescue Department.
Move to approve.
Mr. Mayor?
The motion,
Mr.
the motion is to approve and was by Dunn and seconded by Blanks. Now we'll have a discussion. Is there a discussion?
Yes, yes. We have a local business owner here, Chad Shellstrop from the communication specialists, who would like an opportunity to talk about what he can offer as a shop local, from a shop local standpoint. So if we could recognize him and give him an opportunity to talk to the board.
Pleasure of the board.
Fine by me.
That's fine. I think we postponed it last time.
Yeah.
So that he could have an opportunity.
So he could speak.
Yeah.
We could have had that during his comments from the citizens. This wouldn't have been appropriate, but yes. Mr. Shellstrop, we'd be glad to hear from you.
Mr. Mayor, I got some documents I'd like to hand out to the
Thank you. And down, pass it around. Oh, there's more.
Stuck that in my pocket.
Look. Look at the salt.
Salt's in my head.
Floor is yours.
Okay. I would like to thank the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I would also like to thank the Tullahoma Fire Department for giving communications specialists the opportunity to submit a price quote for the Motorola XPR 3500E portable radio, which I have here. Communications specialists submitted our quote per the request of the fire department, and we gave the fire department the best possible deal that we could. Per your last board of mayor and alderman meeting, communications specialists found out that we were over $1,000 less than the other vendor and submitted a quote also for the same exact radio, the XPR 3500E. Communications specialist is warning why we are not considered for the purchasing of this radio. And then there were statements made about communication specialists at the last board meeting as to why we were not considered, and I'm glad you're giving me the chance tonight to clarify some of those statements. your documents that you got, page 1 of your document is a letter from Motorola and the authorized Motorola distributor that I deal with, stating that Communication Specialist is a authorized Motorola commercial radio dealer. And if you look at your page 2 of those documents, it's a sales bulletin from Motorola to the commercial radio dealer channel, stating that Motorola is allowing the commercial channel to have access to any professional tier radio model upon approval of our reseller's opportunity. And this approval process, Motorola calls it an APB approval, which APB stands for Above Price Book. Motorola has stated to me that this is a one-time approval per customer, which means once you get approval for the specific customer, which in this case is the Tullahoma Fire Department, that you don't have to get any more approvals to quote or sell to them a professional tier radio in the future. Page 3 of your documents is a document that, page 3 of your documents is Communication Specialist APB approval from Motorola to sell the Tullahoma Fire Department 30 Motorola XBR 3500E professional tier portable radios. This approval process was submitted for Communication Specialist by the Motorola authorized distributor. And then warranty. Warranty. Communication Specialist offers the Motorola manufacturer 5-year warranty. Programming. Communication Specialist has the Motorola programming software, the cables for the XBR 3500E. And Communication Specialist, we offer free programming if you buy the radios from us, so there's free programming. Service-wise, Communication Specialist has been in the radio business in Coffee County since 1973. We started out in Manchester and we moved to Tullahoma in the mid to late 80s. Communication Specialist sells, services radio communications equipment to numerous customers from police, fire, EMS, hospitals, schools, manufacturers, etc. Communication Specialist is on call 24 hours a day for our customers' needs. Servicing of this specific radio, the XBR 3500E, Communication Specialist can handle anything on the exterior of the radio as far as antennas, knobs, belt clips, screws. Any repairs on the internal of the radio will have to be sent off to Motorola for repair. This is an IP-rated radio, and if you open the case of the radio to repair the internal problem, you immediately void the manufacturer's warranty. Communication Specialist would keep a couple of these in case you need to have it sent off for the internal repairs. And that's about it. Do you have any questions?
I'd like to, I know that the people who will be using these radios it's not the Board of Mayor and Aldermen that's going to be using them. It's going to be the Police and Fire Department. So I'd like to I'd like to give them an opportunity to
Yes, sir. Thank you.
ask any questions that they might like to ask. Are you willing to engage in questions that they have?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any questions from fire or police?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to add that we are considering more than just price. We're considering the service. We looked at it. We looked at his quote. When we got his quote, he made it very clear he was a low-tier Motorola dealer. That does not include professional grade. He evidently has since got permission to sell, as he said, a one-time deal to sell us 30 radios. That's what he said. So I'm still concerned about the service. We are in the middle of a project that we've been working on for a year, buying portable radios, mobile radios, installing new repeaters. They've all been through the same company that does the communication center work, that does the ambulance service work. They do TUA. They do Elk River Gas, which are two key partners that we speak with regularly on the radios. And I just am still concerned about buying from somebody that just got permission to do a one-time sale of radios. Now, I would love to be able to do a local. If we had an authorized, professional-grade Motorola dealer right here in town, I would buy from them in a minute, because it'd be a lot easier for me to just drive a block down the road and say, here, fix this radio. But I can't do that. Not right now. Not with Motorola professional grade. Finally, I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago about us going to digital after the first of the year. If we purchase some of these radios from one distributor and some of these radios from another distributor, we're going to have to mark those individual radios. And each time we have a problem with one radio, we're going to have to figure out who we bought it from. And then we're going to have to get another radio that's programmed just like that radio, because each one of our officers has their own assigned radio. It has their badge number in it, their ID. If they get in trouble, they can push a button. We already know who it is without them saying a word. If we're going to have radios that are going to be sent off, that radio that they hand us to use would have to be programmed right then to match that person. It's just going to add a lot of possibility for confusion and problems, and that's normally where it breaks down, is in communications on an emergency scene. So we're very happy with our service right now. We're very happy with the dealer that all of us are using, and I would just encourage you to support the police and fire chief with our endeavor in this final purchase of these portable radios.
May I ask for clarification from Chad? Chad, would you mind coming up? So it's my understanding that you said this was not a one-time quote, you only had to get permission one time.
It's a one-time approval. Now, if Tullahoma Fire Department was to come back 3 months from now, 6 months from now, I don't have to get approval. I can give them a quote, and I can also sell them a professional tier radio.
And so
it's a one-time approval for, like, Tullahoma Police Department came to me. I have to get approval first. Once I get that approval, then I can deal with them in the future on the professional tier radios.
But Motorola has been pretty forthcoming in saying that they're going to give you the approval like they did in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, they approved it. I mean,
That's
I
all
don't see them not
And
approving the next one.
You said you offer free programming, so
Free programming
how could we
is
know that they would be compatible, like Mr. Chastain said? How?
like programming. If they have another XPR 3500E radio, I read the radio, change the ID, and then clone it to the new radio. That's be the easiest. If not, they can supply me with the channels and what they want in the radio, and we can program it.
So you can program them where there would not be a lack of communication interdepartmentally?
No, it would be the same as what they got in the radios. You just read it and then change the ID, because it's probably got Chastain's ID or Chief Williams's ID to whomever ID they want. Put it in there, and 10 seconds later, write to it.
Chief Williams, you're a user of these radios. Do you have any comments, any questions for Chad?
No, I just would like to reiterate the words of my colleague, Chief Chastain. This was a project that we started shortly after I kind of hit the ground here, and actually he had already started before I got here. We've kind of accelerated it. We saw a need for us to invest in our communication systems within Tullahoma, and not only for us, but also to bring Public Works into that fold. And we're probably 2/3 or more into that project right now. So I reiterate what he said as far as I think it's important to maintain consistency in what we're doing and how we're doing it. You know, I'm not saying absolutely down the road there might not be an opportunity for somebody else to us, hey, let's get into this and get working together. But I think for right now, given where we're at in the scope of the project that we've been working on, I think it's very important to maintain the consistency of where we're at. So.
One question for the two of you. What's the life expectancy of the radios that you have or you would be getting right now? Do you expect them all to have to be replaced at the same time? Or what is that time frame?
Well, I mean, I know as far as replacing them, we've already gone through and replaced a pretty significant amount of our portable radios. I'm going to have to be replacing a pretty significant amount of my radios that are in the vehicles once we move towards going digital. You know, as far as, I don't know what the life of the radios were before I got here, as far as how long they were in use.
Before this number, we were using a HT1250, and we've been using those about 15 years, Motorola HT1250, but it did not have the digital capability. And they have phased that radio out, and we're starting to see problems getting materials and stuff. So that's why we were kind of pushed to move this forward a little bit on this digital aspect of it to get the new radio system up. The new repeaters, which we've got them installed, and we're just a few things away from being able to switch to digital.
Well, I think in all respect to Mr. Chaucer, when might he be able to competitively sell radios to the city?
Well, I don't speak for his business, but what I would be looking for as a dealer, somebody that would come to Chief Williams and I and say, hey, we're here, we want to get your service. I want to see what they can offer us, their location, where their shop is, where they'd be pulling our vehicles. I mean, I've got a $1 million ladder truck that they might be working on at some time. I want to make sure they've got the proper liability insurance if something goes wrong. So that's some things that I think would be important. Plus, be a fully authorized professional grade dealer for Motorola. Have the authorized technicians, have the facility and the license, and a little bit of experience. And I think it says a lot when you look at who else uses the same people we use. We're using the people that just about everybody in this area uses. TUA, Elk River Gas, Jack Daniels, Motlow College, they all use Communication Evolutions, the same ones we use, because of their history and their abilities. They can do it all. It's a one-stop shop.
Thank you.
I have one comment I'd like to make. You know, I feel like you can buy the same bunny bread at Publix and at Piggly Wiggly. And, you know, we have these shop local initiatives. I just feel like it's completely antithetical for us to keep pushing that and not give a local business a shot. You know, I think this might be an opportunity, 30 radios, to, you know, see if he was able to meet the demand that's required. So I just wanted to say that.
Mr. Chelser, did you have any final comments that you'd like to make in response?
Yeah. Chastain mentions that they deal with Communications Evolutions, and they deal with all these local places. I mean, communications specialist deals with most of Franklin County's police. I mean, we do the Franklin County Sheriff's Department, we do Estill Springs, we do Deckard, we do Cowan. I mean, we do manufacturing. I mean, we do hospitals. I mean, we got 2 schools in this town that we do, which is East Middle and Robert E. Lee. And the digital they're going with don't match up with their radios. So if we did have a situation at the school, they're not going to be able to talk, and the school ain't going to be able to talk to them. I did meet with school supervision at the high school Friday about their radio systems, and the high school had purchased some radios from a local vendor that would not match up with our radios. But they have since gone at the high school, went to Nashville, and bought a whole new radio system this year that would function properly and that will program into our radio system. So I can see that the school system will probably move in the rest of their schools onto the same band that we are, so we can communicate if we have to. But the high school just changed this year back to something that they can talk to us with. And this is exactly what we're trying to avoid, is being on an island out here where we can't communicate with everyone else.
Okay, well, thank you, gentlemen. I think.
Mr. Mayor, I will add, I sit on the Consolidated Communications Board.
Yes.
And when he was speaking of kind of like we're not using the radios. So to me, it's who's important. I always want to shop local. You don't have to a loaf of bunny bread's the same, but you don't have to service a loaf of bunny bread. You don't have to take it to multiple people.
Bunny bread's not gonna keep it.
It's not going to keep you safe.
I mean.
Yeah, and I would love to, I get on the comm center, everybody's using the same. The sheriff's department, the comm center itself, Manchester Police Department. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's all through communication evolution. So when they come down, if there is an issue at the comm center, they can take care of the equipment for basically all of Coffee County. Now, I do respect that we is using Franklin County, and there are others using it, but we don't deal with deal with Franklin County, but our equipment is here. So from that, I love shop local, but part of our decision is not just where do we save nickels and dimes, it's also what is our staff.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
I think we've given both sides of this issue ample opportunities to address the board. And I think it's now up to this board to make a decision. I think, Mr. Shepard, you've had an opportunity to be here tonight, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And to present your credentials. But I think it's time to vote. And we're voting as what's on the agenda is for the current supplier. It's 6-1. Thank you, Mr. Shepard. Is there any other old business? If not, we'll go to the new business. We had a public hearing on the ordinance number 1545 earlier. The ordinance to amend the zoning map of Tullahoma, Tennessee is set forth in the municipal code, which is ordinance number 1392. Rezones 2 parcels at 112 College Street from R1 low density to residential C2 general commercial district. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Alderman Berry made a motion to approve and seconded by Michael. Is there any discussion? Please cast your vote. Seven to 0. Next item is to consider the approval of an equipment replacement project in the amount not to exceed $30,000 to authorize the mayor to sign a 3-year service agreement with the Tullahoma Utilities Authority and to record and broadcast public meetings for the city of Tullahoma.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Barry, approved by Pro Tem Blanks.
I do have one comment. As part of this, so we've got microphones up here and we've got speakers up there. Something I hear a lot is people back there can't hear. And I always feel like I'm yelling to get them, and my voice has been awful lately. So as part of this, can we, and it may have been it and I missed it, get something to amplify the sound?
It is not a part of the equipment or the work that TUA will do for us, but it is something that we'll have to coordinate with them so that there isn't a delay. We were able to talk through it a little bit. There's a chance that the equipment we have may be able to be amplified in the room, but we're gonna have to test it and see if we end up with a dubbed effect where your mouths, are moving and the sound comes later. Because what happens, if they play it in the room, then it takes longer to get back to their studio for the feed. So we're gonna play around with it. The goal is to try to amplify it in the room and for the recording, but I think the priority is the recording, unfortunately. So I'll do my best, though, to try to see that both can happen.
Your point is well taken. It is very difficult to hear from back here from what's being spoken up here. It's also very difficult for people that are listening in to hear as well. So we've got our homework cut out for us. This is a $30,000 investment, and with new technology, I believe we can get there from here. But we have, and PHED's been doing this for many years, providing the equipment. They bought the equipment to start with. And said he didn't buy it, P-Head bought it, so we give a shout out to P-Head for what they've done for the many years. I have spoken with P-Head, and they are on board with this agreement. So it's not something we're taking away from them. They will still be able to take the feed that we're giving them and to feed it to their other ATT.
One more quick question. Do we need a 65-inch television? Is that what I read?
That's what was recommended.
Is it for our benefit?
Ideally, we would have multiple televisions, I believe, in this room, so that we could go away from this pull-down screen and maybe have them, I mean, we'll have to see with the electrical and where it makes sense, but we'd like to have some that are for your benefit to see presentations, and then some that are for the audience's benefit. The one television in the back would replace the tube television, and would allow you to see cue you to when the meeting is starting, because we'll no longer have anyone physically here from TUA. They'll be able to control all of the cameras remotely from their studio. And so when you see that the music and the intro start to play on the TV, that's how the mayor will know to start the meeting.
Fancy.
Okay, we have a motion and a proper motion and a proper second. Any further discussion? Not kept, vote. Motion passes 7-0. Item number 125 is consider the approval of bylaws and establish community council for diversity and inclusion.
Move to approve.
The background on that is on page 82. I'll refer you to that.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. And there's a presentation.
We'll get there.
I mean, why get rid of this, right?
Okay, now we have Alderman Blackwell will have a presentation on this motion.
You okay for me to go down?
You good.
Okay. I'm going to come down here. Is this something I'm supposed to be using, Winston?
Can you tell me when to push?
Yeah.
Do we have an extra slide? Just slide?
Yeah, just tell me when you want me to advance it.
It's been a long time since I've done a PowerPoint.
Do you need to put it in?
I don't know. Okay. Jennifer, is it okay if I just tell you when? All right.
It's a laser pointer if you need that laser pointer.
So I know that many of you, most of you have been here for a while, but there's 2 new aldermen here. So about a few months back, there was a discussion around beginning a community council for diversity and inclusion. And diversity council is what it used to be called. And can y'all hear me okay? Okay. Jennifer, you can go ahead and next slide. So I kind of wanted to give you background as to how this came about, because I think that's important, because I feel like it's very important for y'all to hear how community-driven this was. So after the unfortunate incident with George Floyd, I was speaking with someone who I consider to be a mentor. I was speaking with Stephen Hobatter about what our community can do better in terms of how we support our underrepresented communities here. That involves a lot of different people, and we'll talk about what those words mean for everybody in a bit, but what we could do, how we could be better. And in that conversation, I realized I should talk to you also Pastor Torbert, who has been, I think those 2 men have been, I'm going to be honest, they've been incredibly amazing guiding us through this process. So in talking with them and seeing what kinds of needs we're having, what we were realizing is that there was a lot of different communities within our own community that we didn't necessarily hear from all the time. And so for me, it was important for us to figure out a way to give them a voice. And so what we began doing is I met with Ms. Moody, who has also been incredibly helpful, and how to get this actually started in an appropriate manner. Because, you know, we all have ideas, but what's really important is to hear what our community's ideas. So our first step was to actually have an open meeting to get a feel from our community as to what concerns they had, what ideas they had, and whether there was even interest. And I've got to be honest, I've been to a lot of city meetings, and I have never been to one that was that well attended. There was probably between 60 to 80 people in attendance. Pastor Torbert pulled open the live feed that we did through Mount Zion Baptist Church. He opened his doors to us during COVID, and we had more than 2,300 views online. So people have watched the actual council meeting. We had about 30, I think, citizen participation forms already filled out, sent in to be a part of this. And it was an open forum, and we heard from all different members of our community. And one of the things that I learned was that there are things that people brought up that we can't address. That's not our jurisdiction, it's not something we can do, but there were things that we could. The underrepresented communities that were there, we had Black, Indigenous, people of color, socioeconomically disadvantaged people. We had a lot of people from the disability community, and man, they had some good ideas. Seniors, veterans, the LGBTQ plus population, and which I wasn't expecting. I heard from different religious groups saying, hey, we're in the religious minority here, etc. So what we realized was that there were projects that were actually things we could work on, I think, as a board and as our city itself and as a community. So the process, y'all know I'm not patient, but there was a process to doing this. And so what the first step in the process after this meeting was to sit down and create bylaws. And members of the committee are here, the committee members from the bylaws committee. We held 2 meetings. I want to thank Stacy Lynch and Steve Worsham right now for their work on the bylaws, and Jennifer, and we also consulted with MTAS a bit to understand the Open Meetings Act. So these bylaws that are presented to you today, you'll see you have an updated form, another one, because we did need to make sure that the subcommittees were included within the Open Meetings Act, as well as that the way the electronic meetings are worded obeyed the Open Meetings Act as well. So there's 2 meetings and a lot of emails, and Jennifer can go to the next slide. And we came up with a purpose, which I think is what you guys care about hearing about. And that purpose was to create and promote a diverse community that emphasizes a commitment to treat all people with dignity, trust, and respect by recognizing their beliefs, values, and differences. And while I love a good purpose, and I say this to citizens a lot, I like it when they come to complain to me, but really what I want to do is find out action items that we can do for them. So next slide is the objectives. Our committee itself really realized that they wanted action from this, things that were tangible, things that we could also measure and say, hey, this is something we did. So the objectives, to coordinate programs and activities that advocate for the percentage of the city of Tullahoma's population, which are historically underrepresented in our community, including but not limited to references to gender, race, ethnicity, physical or mental ability, LGBTQ plus status, etc. And that is written, again, by our wonderful lawyer. And if there's questions on how that became, you can ask her in a bit. Provide education that enhances cultural awareness and provides opportunities for said historically underrepresented communities. Serve as a resource to network and share information on city-specific programs, activities, and policies that enhance opportunities for all residents. Provide input related to city-specific programs, activities, and policies. And, I'm going to go to the next one. The outcomes. Collection of data to analyze the results of the efforts of the council, and utilizing the data provided to the council to create and adjust action plans for the council. Why were the objectives and outcomes so important to us? It's because we really believe that actions should speak louder than our words. And that was what I wanted to see, and I think everybody wants to see is, we all talk a lot. Let's get some stuff done. The rest of the bylaws, it's lots of legalese. I think Alderman Allmarker will probably appreciate more than I can. It's who and how the council is created. The mayor may appoint someone to it. It's a non-voting person, or as I see it, as a listen and learn and advocate person. There's systems in place for removal and replacement of non-participating members. There's the roles of the officers, and there's a lot of stuff about the Open Meetings Act. And I just wanted to say the reason why I wanted to present this is because I really also mainly want to be thankful right now for the people who have committed to working on this for so long. You know, the next one, I'm not going to read the quote. Thank you to Pastor Torbert and Stephen Hovatter for the idea. A big thank you to our citizens. I have received emails and people have been engaged on this, and it's been amazing to see how much our citizens actually seem to care about this. The bylaws committee, who I'm going to invite up here in a second, and of course to Steve Lynch, Stacy Lynch, Steve Worsham, Jennifer Moody, and Winston, who has I've given a lot of stuff to this past week, so sorry. But I want to bring up the bylaws committee here because I'm going to go and take a seat, and they're going to answer any questions because in the end, this is theirs. So Pastor Torbert is going to come up. Susan's not here. Susan Carr, she is with ARC. She is with the disability community. Tisha Fritz can come up, and Rob Peel. Jill Giudice also helped, and Stacy Lynch is the person who wrote the bylaws. So any questions, you guys can ask them. Thank you all so much for your hard work. If there's any questions.
Questions from the board? They're going to make it easy on you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
We have a proper motion and a proper second. There's no further discussion. We're ready to vote on bylaws.
I have a couple of things. And I want to preface this with, I really support the initiative for this, and I want to help in any way possible. I have a couple of questions, though. This is, what is and Jennifer may have to answer, the committees and councils that are formed under the city versus outside of the city?
I'm sorry. I was on the first one.
Councils and committees that are formed under the city versus outside of the city. What's the significance between the two?
One of the significant items that we discovered is the Open Meetings Act, and that's why you had some revised bylaws tonight. If it is formally created by this board, it does fall under the Open Meetings Act. All the meetings will have to be open to the public, advertised with adequate notice, which is typically 7 to 10 days, and then minutes kept and a record kept of all those meetings.
As far as it being, so is it it's an official council of the city? So
Yes.
It represents the city of Tullahoma? Do we have other councils where the board doesn't appoint the members?
Yes. Art council.
We just put a person on?
Well, and it has. Yes,
I think
the members
for
are.
clarification, we
They're
have
still all approved by the board?
all of our boards and commissions. All of their members are appointed by the mayor, but the vast majority of them are appointed by this board. And even the ones that are appointed by the mayor, we bring those on the consent agenda for you to officially acknowledge those appointments.
And this one we do as well. It would come to the board.
I was thinking
I think that what you may be thinking about is we have had a practice of mayors creating committees that are less formal than this. So I've seen that with the Get Fit Committee and even maybe the Go Green Committee or the where we don't have official bylaws for those organizations, Tullahoma Pride, but they were created by the city and are an entity of the city, and we appoint the members.
4.3, page 84.
I don't know how I missed it.
And it will come in front of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. They have to fill out like the citizen participation form, all that.
This is a tough. So I think I support this. Well, I don't think I support it. I do support it. My view is that the role of government in general, from national to local, is to make sure that the playing field is equal for everybody. That's one of our primary roles. It's not the role of us to advocate for any specific group of people or persons or individuals. We don't obviously do a good job of this all the time. I don't think that it's intentional in most cases, but it comes just from the bureaucratic and procedural nature of our processes. And as an organization and a machine, government in general lacks empathy. We don't really have that ability to see things through the eyes of other people, and I think that lends to some of these issues. Part of that's by design, because as a collective, the government, we should not be susceptible to the temptation to lean towards or favor one group or another. And when it does, that's when we see those scales of fairness tilt. We may all be on board with advocating for a special group, but after us, we don't know. The groups may change. And something in here that I saw is it's kind of an et cetera, right? And there's no specificity into the group. And I think it's clear to anyone who's unbiased and has an open mind that there are groups in our community who are disadvantaged, they're overlooked, that we've failed to balance their scales. It's not unique to us, it's across the whole nation, and really across the world. I don't think that's intentional here. I think it's just a side effect of the system. But being fair doesn't mean granting special privileges or access or specifically targeting the needs of a specific group or groups. It just means that everyone, regardless of your sex, your race, your age, your disability, your color, your creed, your national origins, your religion, or even your genetic information, you have equal access and opportunity. I support the stated purpose of the council, which is to create and promote a diverse community that emphasizes a commitment to treat all people with dignity, trust, and respect. And I really think that every individual needs to take a step back and should read that every single day and apply it to our lives, because that's a pretty shared sentiment. I support the objectives. I applaud the initiatives that were provided. The Black History Museum, the various exhibits, the sponsoring the We Care MLK committee, the scholarships, all of that's great. Personally, as an individual, I would do anything that I can do to support those issues. That being said, I believe this council should be formed as a standalone nonprofit community advocacy group versus under the umbrella of the city. I also don't think that it solves the government-specific issues of equality that many believe that it will, which is why I think that we as a city government should take additional steps towards a strategic plan for our city that includes ensuring fair and equal access for all the groups. We need a plan that addresses generational poverty in our neighborhoods that have been left behind and forgotten. A plan that addresses maintenance of our facilities, which we've started with the ADA and made small strides. And I think that advocacy groups such as this council and others can play a vital role in helping translate the needs of the community, but I believe that the full scope of the council lays outside of our role as a city government. We'll have a non-voting representative on the board, but this council, who is under the city and represents the city, will make decisions that reflect upon the city. And I can see this becoming political. There's a lot of room for subjective decisions on who is disadvantaged, what is disadvantaged. And I think that there's a pathway for this to work, and I think that it would be better served outside of the city government and community powered.
So I would like to ask Ms. Lynch to come up, and I think you're speaking to the et cetera part. And I think that she's the lawyer who wrote it, and to allay some of your fears on that, possibly. And I also, yeah.
I'm not real sure that I can speak to his concern, because I don't think the concern is the et cetera part, if I'm hearing you correctly, Alderman Berry. But I will speak to that, and I'll speak to a little bit, because I think it goes further to the bylaws, and understand that bylaws of an organization are intentionally written to be flexible, and so that you can continue the business of the organization And I think that might be your greater concern, if I'm hearing you, because I think your concern is not necessarily with the organization, but its position and its role with the city. I believe, is what I'm hearing you. But I do want to speak to the et cetera part and the historically disadvantaged, because I think we all can attest that, what is historically or is a disadvantaged community today may not be tomorrow, and certainly wasn't 5 years ago. It changes on a regular basis. And so if we continue, we don't ever want to have a set of bylaws, which is intentionally written to be the manual for an organization. We don't want to write it so strictly that the organization that it's there to protect and to guide can't adhere to it. So that's why the et cetera is in there. And when you look at what is a historically socially disadvantaged group, the core of it is, without having to define it, and that was a difficult thing when we all got together and tried to decide what do these bylaws need to address and what is our purpose and what is our objectives. And when you look at what a socially disadvantaged group is, it's any group that has been subjected to any sort of racial or ethnic prejudice or cultural bias. But more importantly, because of that, their identities as members of the groups without regard to their individual qualities. So it's nothing that they did, but they've been biased. They've suffered some sort of bias. And that social disadvantage must stem from circumstances beyond their control. Well, yeah, I can list out, and did, all of those different things, but you have to have the et cetera, because again, you don't know what's going to be tomorrow. But I don't think that's what your concern is.
Okay.
I think your concern is what sort of power does this group, this council have? And I heard you say, is the city bound by the decisions that this council makes? And one of your concerns is that these decisions that this council makes, then the city is going to be abiding by. But if you will look very carefully at what the objectives and some of the main objectives, I think we were very careful to make sure that we knew, that we put in there, it is to help to coordinate programs and activities. It's to raise awareness of the socially economic, these socially disadvantaged communities, and to provide the education and to advocate. It is, and to bring that to light, like you said, to be someone to help reach out where the board is maybe not able to do that. So it's not to make decisions. It's not to make policy for the city. That's what the people of Tullahoma elected you all to do.
Right.
Yep.
It is to be an arm to bring information to you, to make a bridge for these socially disadvantaged, historically socially disadvantaged communities. So I do understand where you might want some more specificity as to what a historically disadvantaged community is, but that's not for a bylaws to put in there. I think that these are very much more specific bylaws than I think I've ever written before, because I think it's an extremely important thing to put in there. I do think that it is a difficult thing to define. So I don't think I can answer that question for you, because I think it's a different issue than maybe.
But I think you addressed the question. When I was regarding the bylaws, it's not where, it is to give input, not to make decisions for the city. Does that make sense?
Right, it wasn't necessarily a decision, because my understanding is none of the councils can make decisions for the city. It represents the city.
Which I think is a great thing.
Which I do, but at the same time, it's not our role as a body, as a government, to advocate. It's our job to fix the problems. And I understand that we do that. This is a great arm, and I think a great tool and a great resource, and I believe in it.
You don't need the city.
But I think that it can be, what is the advantage of having it under the city? Because I know we all know where we all stand on things today in the group, but we don't know 10 years from now or 5 years from now what the next body's going to say and promote under this group or any other group that represents the city. I mean, you may get a group of racists come up and say, you know, KKK is disadvantaged. But I mean, that's my...
I have a question and like Alderman Berry, I have no problem with these bylaws. My question is, have this group considered organizing as a 501c3 as opposed to organizing as a council under the city? I'm a member of organizations that are 501c3 that do great things for the city.
No, we hadn't yet.
But the city is not, we have no obligation to the city, and the city has no obligation to our organization. I just wondered if you had considered that avenue.
That was not something that was put before. This was from the very beginning, it was something that was spearheaded through the city.
For 501c3, these bylaws would fit just fine.
We'd have to adjust them because this is, I mean, and actually I was one of the founders of the Sports Council, where we started as a outshoot of the city and then we turned it into a 501c3. So I've gone through that process. So you do have to change it.
Y'all did that mostly to get the
we did it for the tax credit.
Yeah.
I have a comment.
So, yes. So, no, that's not something that was addressed.
It doesn't matter.
Go ahead, Mr. Novy. I'll let you.
I'll go first. I just think that it speaks volume for our city to be a part of this. And I think we do advocate to a certain extent our jobs. Plus we do advocate for the people in the city. I am part of the historically disadvantaged community. So I think this community council will make a diverse group of people feel inclusive to our city that has in the past felt like they were never a part of it.
And I agree. That's why I wanted to start this as a member of that group.
My comment is a little bit to echo Daniel's concerns. Role of government is to be a limited one. We should only be doing the things that which the private sector or a nonprofit cannot, will not, or should not do. And this just falls outside of the scope. The mission is beautiful, and I echo this in a meeting with Tisha this morning. I'm like Daniel. I can get behind it 100%. I just feel like it is inappropriate to be spearheaded by our city, and would be more appropriate as a 501c3.
And in that vein, our city is now, if we do pass this, it's giving credence to the fact that overall we have, as governments, I think, failed a lot of our underrepresented communities. And by saying, hey, it's time for us to step up, and this is us stepping up and saying, we want to hear from you. And with that, yeah, that's it.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to add, if everybody else is done, that I think it would speak more volumes to these people if we, as a body, put a plan of action together and said, this is what we are going to do. We're not going to rely on donations to fix Jefferson Street Park, which amazing, I'm not knocking them, but we are going to fix that We are going to take care of the sidewalks. We are going to put emphasis on law and order in these areas.
Absolutely.
Those are things that the city government can do. We don't hand out scholarships. We don't, that's not our role.
That's not what we're voting on right now. Right now,
I
and we can
understand,
vote
but it's
against
a
that if you'd like,
function-
but
It's a function of. the
possibly if that
group.
goes through. It's not, I mean, if you, so the thing is, I agree with you, the strategic plan is necessary, on the same page with you on that. But don't you need to be able to get input from this community on that?
Which we can still do with the group and with the, I'd like to make a motion to postpone this indefinitely.
I'll
to
second.
allow, you finish, to allow a discussion over the merits of forming this council as an independent, nonprofit community advocacy group versus under the umbrella of the city, and to discuss ways on how the city board and this group can work together, but not under the umbrella of the city. And separately, I urge us to consider forming a committee that's comprised of board members and city staff and members of the committee to not only investigate, but actually take action on issues of equal access and opportunity in the city.
I second.
We have a motion, proper motion, and it's been seconded. Motion by Alderman Berry, seconded by Alderman Amaker.
And we're voting to,
Just postpone.
To postpone.
okay.
And the vote is to postpone action on this.
So a yes vote would to be in favor of postpone, and no vote would be to in favor of voting tonight.
The Alderman Berry's motion is to postpone. So a yes vote is to postpone.
Okay.
The motion is to postpone.
Mr. Mayor, can we follow up with an action to meet with the Diversity Council and the bylaws in the city and members of the board that want to? That's a tough one, right? Because I know we can't discuss.
You're wanting members of this body to meet together.
Maybe a study, will a study session have to do? Yeah.
You can have that meeting, we just need to properly advertise it as a public meeting.
Can I make a comment? I'm just disappointed. And it's not very often that I make a comment after a vote like this, but this is disappointing. These people have worked very hard. I would have at least, and now I will say that we won't be able to apply for that next grant. So that's where we're at when we postponed. That's all.
We have one other item of business, Kara, under new business. Item number 2122 is to approve the application for this group from the Nissan Foundation for Cultural Diversity and Inclusion for $29,200.
Motion to postpone indefinitely.
Motion to remove it from the agenda because we won't make the deadline.
It's not relevant. Remove it from the agenda.
I need a second, right?
Second.
All in favor of removing from the agenda? Okay, 7-0. There's no other new business,
We have
but
one more item of business tonight, and that's the action on the
thank you for calling that to our attention, Steve. Appreciate that.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to add the authorization, to authorize our attorneys to execute the settlement agreement on our behalf for the McCall versus Harton Partners and the City of Tullahoma.
We have a motion to approve the action, authorizing the attorneys to consummate the deal with the Horton properties with the Dameron
Second.
properties over at Oak Park. We have a motion and do we have a second?
I second.
And a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, vote. Vote yes. Passes 7-0. That concludes all of the agenda items. If there's no other agenda items, we can be adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
And we'll call the beer board to session. Do you have any public comments from the beer board? On the consent agenda, we have the minutes from the October meeting, October 26th meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And blanks through the Blackwell. All in favor of the consent agenda? Seven zero. Is there any other old business? Is there any new business? Not the beer board will be adjourned. That concludes tonight's agenda.
Except for study session.
Now then, we do have a study session scheduled for tonight. And before we have a study session, I think we need some ground rules for our study session. I'm going to pass around some proposed, of course, with the study session, we're not voting, we're discussing. So I have some ground rules I'd like to just pass around. Okay, on the ground rules that I'm proposing.
Thank God.
Is that to have a meaningful study session, I think we need to limit them to one per month. I don't think we need to have one for every board meeting that we have. And I think we need to limit the discussion for these meetings to, in order to justify a study session, I think that one subject is about all we need to cover in one of the meetings. Talk about the length of the meeting, which this came up at last meeting, just how long these might last. I think for a study session to go longer than an hour would be too long. So I think we need to limit it to an hour. And looking at the clock on the wall, I think we should try to limit our study sessions to close by no later than 7:30. Robert's Rules of Order, I'd like to keep the rules in order and allow each member to speak, and each member to speak before the speaker speaks secondly. In other words, go around the room for everyone to have an opportunity to speak. Then if another person cares to speak again. Probably should set a time for each speaker. I don't have what's the right time. I don't know. We'll discuss that. I think we need to, one person may think we need to have a study session. We may have 6 people that don't think we need to have a study session. Or we may have 6 people that think we need to have a study session and one person that doesn't think we need to have a study session. So I think we should have the approval by the majority of the board before we have a study session. Of course, there'll be no votes taken during study session, and there'll be no minutes taken, so you get off light there. And I would like to ask that our city attorney and our city administrator participate in our board sessions because they may provide background information that none of us might have. Do these ground rules, I'd just like to get we're not voting, but I'd like to get a discussion going as to the comments.
Mr. Mayor, I'm on board with everything except for the close no later than 7:30, considering that gives us all of 6 minutes this evening. And I'm okay with the 7:30, and I would be okay with postponing this to a night where our agenda wasn't so full.
I think that's appropriate. I think one of the good things about having a study session, I hope, is that it will facilitate the board meetings that will go faster. So we have plenty of time to do a study session.
Yes.
I'm not trying to shortchange a study session at all, but in the interest here, some people are even bringing snacks tonight.
Prepared. He was prepared.
And I think that's appropriate. But I think with these guidelines, I think we can accomplish a lot with the study session and get on with the agenda for why we're having a study session. I think the thing that's been brought to our attention is that we need to look at evaluations for city employees. And I don't think we can do that tonight, but I think we can at least set the ground rules for, okay, when we set the study session for this, we know what the agenda is and we can get on with the business at hand. All of you have seen, can I get into just touch on the subject of the evaluation process? You've provided, Ms. Allmacher, you've provided us a number of a skeleton or guidelines from other cities. I guess Ms. Rogers from MTAS has provided some of those, and all of you have seen those, and have you looked at those? I've looked at them. They're all pretty much the same thing, and if you could take one, I wouldn't try to start picking things from one and pick one. You've pretty well covered it. I do have an issue with evaluating a senior manager at the level of detail that goes in, all of those. I looked at there are 11 different categories for evaluation, and each category had 5 different evaluations to be scored from 1 to 5. That's 55 evaluations to be done. And one of the options was to provide, if you couldn't answer that or you didn't observe that activity, you'd write NO or not observed. And if a person has not observed someone for a period of time, it'd be hard pressed to answer them completely. So I think that's a great, I've got a packet that's got from how many different cities that we've looked at. For starters, for us to look at and adopt one. Adopt one or scale it down, and instead of having, well, here's the point that I'll make. I've looked at those questions to be evaluated, and some of the questions are very, very important, and they are spot on as to what we should be looking at to evaluate an employee. Critical to the city. Others are much less important. You can't have 55 of all the same importance. So some of them are much more important than others. Yet if you start just taking a weighted average, going through and say, okay, just scoring, you're going to, that question that wasn't nearly as important as another one is going to be having the same weight. I think those are the kinds of issues that we'll need to get into when we start putting together. And I think Ms. Rogers will be a valuable resource to guide us in how to weight these questions.
Is she on the line? Do we want to give her?
She's standing by. I was
a
waiting
couple
to
minutes
see.
to just speak?
So thank you for standing by.
Yes.
If nothing else.
Let her close us out.
While we're waiting, I have one suggestion to the ground rules. You talked about the time, maybe 10 minutes. I think that's kind of general Robert's rules per person.
Isn't it 2
And
minutes?
if we want to extend it,
Well,
then we can.
I think this first go round should be 5, and then maybe a second round is 2. You start adding times 7, and you've used up your hour. By the time you get any input from staff.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
She looks like Shane.
Good evening, Ms. Rogers.
Are we muted?
Good evening, Ms. Rogers.
There we are.
You must not be getting any video where you are.
She may not be. She did hear you.
She did hear you with that video.
Oh, thank you. Is that what I'm doing?
Can you see okay now?
Good evening to you all.
Somebody say something.
Ms. Rogers, I hope you're well and happy this evening.
I am. Thank you all for allowing me to join via Zoom.
It's so small, I can't see.
Can you see us? Are y'all hearing me?
We're trying to get the volume up.
Okay.
I'll turn this up too.
How's that? Are we hearing better?
Yes.
Hearing better.
Good.
Ms. Rogers, thank you for standing by this evening, and thank you for assisting us in what we've been doing while you were coming online is going over just some ground rules for our study sessions. And I think you'll be much more engaged when we get into the real subject of the study sessions, and that being as we intend to set some evaluation criteria for some of our senior employees. That's in stature, not in age, so don't be right. So as we pretty well agreed with the ground rules, and one of the ground rules is that we don't want to be here all night, and we want to try to limit these discussions to an hour, or not try to get past 7:30 for those of us who have an early bedtime. But once we get into the looking at the substance of the evaluation criteria, where we'll be relying heavily on you, and I thank you for participating in that. Having gone through the evaluation criteria that you have supplied to us, and I believe all of us have seen copies of everything that you've supplied, I look at them and they're much the same. Many of them have 10 or 11 different criteria with subsets of 5 each, so that 55 or 60 different questions to be answered. The point I was making to the group is that many times there'll be a key question that is really substantive to the job, critical to the city, that job be handled very positively, be scoring high. Yet other questions might be of significantly lesser importance. And if you go through and just say, okay, everybody gets a 5 on all the questions, you've got 255 questions, you got 255 points possible. But that one question that wasn't as important got the same weight as one that was very important. So I think we'll need your help as we put together an evaluation criteria for weighting some of these questions on the evaluation form.
Sure, and what I would tell you that I've done in the past, when I write the final report of summarizing, if that is the direction you all go, each question is averaged. And so it's not a total average. I mean, I can do a total average, but it's also each question or each subset receives an average. And so, it's not like if communication happened to be lower, that's going to bring the entire score down necessarily. But I can certainly, I listened in on your conversation on Facebook Live, and so I'm happy to narrow it down to one to propose to you, or 2 working with whomever you like, or just myself. And if it's the will of the board to shorten it a little, I'm happy to do so. whatever you all like.
Well, we're a board of 7, so we probably have 7 different answers for you. But I think everyone would, I'll tell you a negative about scoring someone when you have to answer 55 questions about that person. You might not score them as high as they deserve. So I think if we can get to a very substantive, shorter evaluation form, I think it would solve all of our desires.
Okay, I can work on that if you'd like and give you a proposal for that.
And
I like that
Now, by
idea.
shorter, I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking 25 or 30, but you might be thinking 10, so that would be really helpful to know.
Well, I'm certainly anxious to see a couple of suggestions that you might have. And if you bring us a couple, we might get out of here within this time frame that I suggested earlier. So we'll set another time for the formal study session for doing this. But I'm very comfortable having you on board to guide us through this process.
Hannah, a template that I'm interested in seeing, this is Robin Dunn, by the way, talking to you. I know that in education evaluations, ones that I've seen, where it was kind of like a strengths column and a weaknesses or a to be improved column, and then you could have this big rubric of, say, 10 items or whatever. And so if someone was working on communication or whatever, that might be item 1-A or something, and that would go in one item or one column or the other. And so there might be 3 go in this column and 3 go in that column, and then you're done. Like I definitely, if we're going to do this, I want this as simple as possible.
One other point that I would like to make also is I would like to see the individual do a self-evaluation for some of the major categories, and then each of the aldermen doing the evaluation have an opportunity to respond to that employee's critique of themselves.
I think that there should be categories for meeting expectations, and obviously we would expect that person would be meeting or above expectations, or that there could be periods of probation that follow. Not that we would ever need to have that, but just if you think about that from a perspective of any employee who's being evaluated, that's what you would look at. I like what Robin said. I like the way if you were to set it up in strengths and weaknesses top category and things that should be improved, and an action plan that they can participate in. What do they think their strengths are, and the self-evaluation versus what their weaknesses are. See if that matches up to what everybody else says, and kind of see where we're on the same page, and then kind of give an action plan towards, here are some goals that we want to set for you moving forward.
I've done several of these across different cities, but it's always been based off of a governance framework that was in place and their strategic goals and were they hitting them and where they really had, this is what they knew what we were evaluating them on. And so they had to work towards, and the general day-to-day, are you effective in organizing the meetings, et cetera, et cetera. I guess the only thing that I would add is you're the expert here.
Yes.
And so we don't want to be overwhelmed, but it also shouldn't be shortened. These are, I view them as a tool, not to say, hey, you're doing a good or bad job, but as a tool to find those strengths and grow, not just that employee, but it also helps us as a board, because a lot of times the person doing the evaluation learns a lot about themselves too, and the things that they want and they expect. So I think this is a good exercise and a growth tool. So that would be my only comment is, you're the pro.
I would also add that I have seen these used horribly
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
And I think anybody who is going to be doing an evaluation should have to undergo some sort of training to know how to do this, because this is not a replacement for communication on a one-on-one level. So I don't think any person on this board should ever feel like this is something that they can use as a weapon to demonize our staff. So I don't want that to happen at all.
Agreed.
One thing that, please, don't make this generic. Make it very specific to the job description for the individual that we're evaluating. Make it pertinent,
Yes.
make it relevant to that specific job description.
I concur.
Sure, and I will say, I participated in the hiring process with Ms. Moody. And in that, I know, like Dr. Blanks will remember, we did interviews. And, because I interviewed him, I remember. And we developed a list of competencies that were important to Tullahoma for their city manager. And I recognize that not all of you were in on those interviews, but we interviewed staff and the board and community members and help build what is important for your city. So I'm happy to also look back at some of those and help develop some questions specific to Tullahoma. I think it's important to not be too short, because you want to be able to give Ms. Moody feedback that's going to help her grow as an employee, correct, and help lead the city in the direction you all want to go. And there's a lot of various aspects to her job, not just, it's not as simple as like, say, what a teacher does or a nurse does sometimes. It's got a lot of different customers. She has customers and employees and her board and the citizens. So I know you all want to provide feedback on those various ones. And I'll try to do that as succinctly as possible.
Very good.
And looking at that for her to give feedback as well.
Thank you. We're really glad to have you on board.
Thank you.
One thing I would
I'm
add.
happy to help, and I'm happy to provide any kind of additional information that would help you all feel comfortable in evaluating her and how to do that properly.
Well, I mean, one thing in this evaluation process, in Ms. Moody's position especially, she has to wear so many hats. And, if we're going to be judging the way she wears hats, we're going to only be judging our relationship, personally. Now, we can look, if we have enough foresight in this, we can see what she does across all the city departments. I guess it is our job in leadership to ascertain, that. But, the reason we hire a city manager is not for us to get down in the weeds, If we wanted to do that, then we don't need a city manager. So, sometimes the evaluation process can be tenuous and not so easily. It's hard to boil down and get exactly what you want unless it's some kind of personal thing. So that's definitely not what I think we need to get to, So I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Evaluation is very different from, say, her evaluating a department head when she's around every day.
Yeah.
You use different tools because of that. And
So
certainly you want to feel the freedom that if you don't have the knowledge of something, you don't just rate it, right?
Right.
Right.
But we want to work on things that you would have knowledge about.
Yes. Well, we're going to rely on your expertise to help guide us through this process, just like you did when we were in the hiring process. Because during the hiring process, there were some on the board that wanted to go one direction that was probably not the direction that we needed to go. And I think you aided us in that, so I'm sure you'll aid us in this process as well. Thank you.
Thanks.
Ms. Rogers, we've kept you late this evening, and we'll try not to do that regularly, but thank you for bearing with us this evening. Any further questions for Ms. Rogers? Thank you again for being with us this evening.
Lots of good points.
And with that, we'll adjourn this study session.
So.